Welcome to my business insight, 10-minute business insight on mynewsroom.ca. Paul Martin here, and joining me today is Colin Rooke. Colin is in the insurance business, and he is the commercial risk reduction specialist with Butler Byers Insurance. And I brought him in here because it just struck me, Colin, how many times in the first half of this year, 2020, that a CEO would find themselves in a situation where they'd basically be writing something saying, here's our position, whether that's COVID, followed by systemic racism, followed by Black Lives Matter. It just seems on and on that there are major crises going on in our community, in our society, that are requiring business owners to step up and kind of express their position on these things, even though, it's got nothing to do with my business, but I'm now obligated in a social sense to be talking about this. You see this, is from the insurance world, where people might think it's a little funny. I'm talking to an insurance guy about this, but I mean, you guys live this every day.
Yeah, we are often having these conversations, and it's something that at Butler Byers Insurance, we want to be ahead of the curve, proactive, talking about reputation risk. And you're right, and certainly lately there always seems to be a topic where the CEO has to have a stance or some sort of external communications or even internal communications. What's the company's perspective to those working inside, and then what message do we want on the outside? And from the insurance perspective, depending on the type of policy or the line of coverage, there's often, or I'll say, there could be coverage available that would cover the cost of hiring a PR firm or a firm that would specialize in external communications to help navigate some of these big picture items.
Well, they always say an ounce of prevention, and that's really what we're talking about here, isn't it? Is that get out in front of these issues, and from a PR perspective, that's certainly what we talk about, is don't be in a reactive mode, be in a proactive mode, in the sense, get ahead of the issue, say, here's our stance or position on this, here's the things we've done to position ourselves to mitigate or to be actually ahead of the curve, to be a thought leader, a trendsetter, in things such as, say, in inclusiveness or these kinds of topics. And I think from what I gather from what you're saying is the insurance industry responds to that too. This isn't just about how the world sees you, but in fact, there's a business imperative attached to all of this.
Yeah, there is. And, you touched on the idea of being proactive. And if you think about, from our line of work, if you purchase an insurance policy, you are, proactively financially transferring some future loss that is yet to occur. And so you think, okay, I own a building and I want to make sure that building is intact, so I'm going to purchase an insurance policy. Now, when it comes to communications, any sort of reputation, PR risk, the same idea is, okay, why wouldn't I engage someone in advance, and then when I need the service, I'm ready? I've already checked off that box, rather than, I use this all the time. You wouldn't wait till the building's on fire to then purchase a fire insurance policy. You buy it, long before, and there's any likelihood of fire. And it's the same idea with the communication strategy. You don't want to be in a position where you're formulating the communication strategy during the crisis.
And in today's world of social media, you just don't know when that crisis is coming. I mean, I can't help but think about all of the video that we've seen of police officers. And it doesn't really matter which side of the border you're talking about. We always used to think of it in the US, but Canada certainly got its share of it now. And this is not something that they were prepared for. And it just strikes me as the RCMP's reputation is taking a hit here, and they seem woefully ill prepared to be able to cope with it.
I would agree. And again, it's probably a function of not investing in a proper communication strategy. And that's the challenge, as the CEOs out there, you don't know what's going to happen. If you did, you wouldn't need the advice from others. So you have to think, okay, I need to prepare now for what could happen. I don't know if there's systemic racism in my company, but if I've hired the expert in advance, if we've had the conversations around what we would do if this was us, or further down the road, if we are the center of X, who would handle that? And that's why we believe that communication strategy, PR strategy, is a very important component of risk planning, risk mitigation. Again, if you aren't the expert, then it's our job to align you with those people that are. So then we know, okay, as part of this risk management plan, if this occurs, it will be handled by X. If we have a recruitment issue, we are going to proactively speak with a recruiting firm. No different for a communications crisis.
I'm guessing a lot of people think smaller size companies in particular that, well, that's for the big guys. I can't afford it. I can't do that. It's not for me. How do you respond to that?
I would say, big or small, how long do you plan to be in business? Are you in it for the short term or the long term? And are you the type of company that is planning on growing? And are you the type of company that would be okay if you had an incident that just ceased all operations? And quite frankly, a reputation nightmare could be that cause for you. So no, it's not about size. In fact, I might argue that the smaller businesses would be less likely to absorb a hit to the bottom line than some of the larger companies would. So I don't think there's a definitive size. It's just, again, it's about, for me, it's about perpetuation, continuity.
I'm guessing that for most people, they would say it's not surprising someone in the insurance business is saying have a crisis plan, because insurance really is about
Hmm.
crisis. And your argument is that a part of that crisis communications is a part of the crisis management you need to deal with. It's not just how do I extinguish the fire in my building, but in fact, reputational damage is one of the big ones, and you can't really buy insurance for it. You have to
Well,
mitigate it.
yeah, but if you think too from our industry, um, let's look at on the liability side. There's a death, inside the plant, so to speak. Our job is to make sure if there's litigation following that death, if there's negligence, that the company is made whole and protected. But again, the liability coverage you may have isn't going to protect you against the PR nightmare that could ensue depending on the nature of the death. So again, using the traditional broker model, we've done our job. You've purchased liability insurance. If you're out something or if you're sued successfully, our job is to make sure that the reimbursement's there, but it's not going to help with the months to come. That's part of the communication strategy. How would you handle something like that?
Well, it just strikes me that it doesn't take a very big firm to need a lawyer, right? Whether
Hmm.
it's to just file the articles of incorporation or to keep you renewed every year with your registry. But every firm, no matter what size, needs some kind of financial support, accounting, bookkeeping, or something.
Hmm.
And I would argue that you probably need the same thing for communications advice. You don't need to bring them in house. I mean, think about how big does a company need to be before they put a lawyer full time on the payroll? They don't. They outsource it.
Yeah.
For the most part, and the same thing can happen in this field too. But I find it intriguing that it's the insurance guy making the argument.
Again, it's about prevention. And the argument you made with legal counsel, you could say even just for marketing services, right? How big do you have to be before you do that in house? Well, it doesn't matter your size. You could outsource that to an agency. So you look at the checklist of, you know what functions do I need to ensure that this company is going to stay healthy and viable in the long term? And communications should be part of that strategy. Unless you're the CEO of a communications firm, you probably aren't as well versed in the art of public relations as you should be. And I'm not saying that should be the case. That's why we turn to the experts, and that's why the businesses that we work with should also turn to the expert.
Colin, I want to thank you for this. The time just goes by when we have these conversations. You've been listening to Colin Rooke, the Commercial Risk Reduction Specialist with Butler Buyers Insurance. I'm Paul Martin. Thanks for joining us for the 10-Minute Business Insight.